What's up, guys? This is Mr. Schmidt. I'm back with another lesson here on chapter 16. We're looking at 16.4. And no cap, it's about ethics and the impact of biotechnology. We looked at a lot of different ways biotech is being used right now, but we have to ask the question, should we be doing this? And that's kind of what this lesson is going to look at. We got three objectives here. Feel free to pause the video if you need to jot those down into your notes. Remember, you can use your notes for the test. Why would you not? We're going to look at the privacy issues between biotechnology and some of the problems that can arise. What are some of the pros and cons of transgenic organisms? Remember, these are things that we've added genes into. And then what are some of the ethical issues that surround this brand new biotech as we are able to do some things that we haven't been able to do in the past? Are there going to be some long-term issues? Let's find out. First things first, as we look at biotechnology and the use of biotech in the world today, we have to think about patenting. Now, a patent, in case you weren't sure, is kind of a written paper that explains that a particular technology or a particular procedure is not able to be duplicated or copied by anybody else. So we talk about molecules and biotech procedures. There are certain things that can be patented. As we mentioned earlier, we have the growth modified salmon that we took some Atlantic salmon and we did a couple of things to it. That actually is a patented fish. We can use that and sell that in stores. There's also a couple other patents that are out there, or methods by which we gather genetic information that are patented. However, things you find in nature, those cannot be patented. So going back to what we can patent, we talked about that growth modified rice that has provitamin A. Well, that particular rice has a patent on it. And with that patent, it means that not anybody, not just anybody, can go out and get that rice and grow it or give it to villages or whatever the case may be. So the company that made it, the company that brought it to market, still owns the rights to being able to distribute that rice. And so you might be thinking to yourself, well, why would they not? Why would they not just give it to people so they can survive? Well, obviously, there was time, effort, energy that went into developing the rice, and the people who did that work should be compensated for it. So this is where we get into that little bit of a struggle between giving it away because it can benefit society as a whole and being able to make a living doing it. But going back to the idea of genes in nature, natural genes, they cannot be patented. What else do we have for issues? Well, we also have this concept of genetic privacy. Genetic privacy is it's just becoming a bigger issue now because we can learn a lot from a person about through their DNA. So DNA can reveal a lot of private information, including your ethnic heritage, their chance of developing certain diseases. We use it for evidence in crime cases. And so there's a little bit of chat and discussion regarding how we can best keep people safe and keep that information private. However, we still want to be able to access it, especially if it's going to help us with crimes solving. So two important questions to look at. The first one here is who owns the information stored in your DNA? And the second one is how should genetic information be used? So as we look at this, those are two questions that we might have to take a look at. In fact, pause the video and think about it. Who owns the information that's stored in your DNA? Do you own it? Does a company like 23andMe, do they own it? And then how should genetic information be used? Take some time, think about it. The second part here of the lesson is talking about arguments for growth modified foods. In class, we discussed some of the ways that we growth modify food. We can add some genes in. We can use plasmids and other methods to drop in new information. We use CRISPR. But why? Why? Is there benefit? Is there enough of a benefit to make it something that we should be doing? So here are some arguments for growth modified food. First off is produce higher yields. You can get more crop from the same footprint of land, which is going to theoretically lower the cost. We use less land. We don't need quite as big of a field to make as much crops. So we'll use less chemicals because we're not having to fertilize or treat bugs. We don't have such big fields, so we don't have to use as much energy driving tractors around, trying to irrigate, till up, help the soil. And growth modified foods have been around for more than 2 decades, and we have not found any specific evidence of harm. Now, there might be individual cases where people can try to link the idea, but on the whole, in the science community, there has not been any really major specific reasons why to not use growth modified foods. But people that are against, here are some of their arguments. So, when we talk about not having growth modded foods, we might be saying things like there's no long-term studies. 2 decades is some time, but it's not 200 years. It's only 20. Herbicide resistance of genes may lead to the overuse of herbicides. So sometimes we can growth mod a plant. Say you're growing potatoes. You can put a gene in the potato plant that keeps it impervious to certain herbicides. So when you spray your field, that herbicide will kill all the other plants except for your potatoes. Well, the problem there is you're still using a lot of herbicide, and that can pass into the water and other things and cause additional damage that we don't know about. Insect-resistant genes may threaten beneficial insects. We had that one Bt gene that we added to a plant, and when the European borer came by and tried to eat the plant, it died. Well, what if something beneficial is trying to eat that plant, like a pollinator? This is what's happening to our honeybees. Our honeybees are dying because of some of these traits. And then the last one there, patents may prove too costly for small farmers. There's a great big company that owns a very particular type of corn seed, and they use that corn seed and plant that seed all over the U.S. However, the farmers who use it have to pay the company a premium to be able to use that seed, and that premium might be too high. So when that happens, they try to go out on their own and buy their own seed. Well, whatever seed they get is not going to grow as well. And so there's problems there regarding the cost effectiveness. So the last part here is the ethics of new biotech. And as we look at the ethics, it's easy to kind of see the idea of moving genes, like how we can move genes from one thing to another. For example, we have this GFP gene that we take from a jellyfish and splice it into other organisms like this regular fish, making neon fish. So the same technology that we use for GFP production, you can make like zebra mice and zebrafish, and mice and tadpoles and rabbits and even cats. You might be able to add that code to those organisms. Well, what does that do? Is that going to help the organism? Is there any real reason behind it? The idea here being just because we have the technology to modify an organism's characteristics, are we justified in doing so? Is it okay to do it? Just because we can, should we? And that's all about the ethics of this. The ethics. So biotechnology may enable us to cure things like hemophilia or cystic fibrosis, especially if we use the CRISPR technology. But should biologists try to engineer people that are taller? Should we try to engineer more handsome looking people? What'll happen to humans in general if we get the opportunity to design our own bodies or to design our own children? There's some science fiction movies that kind of go into that idea of being able to pick and choose and design what your kid will look like. So those are some of the questions that we have to think about as we look at this idea of the ethics of this new biology. So what I'd like you to do here, and you're just going to take a minute, in class, we're going to do this debate live. If you're watching this virtually, I'll have a spot for you to do this on Classroom. But I would like you to kind of debate. We're going to split ourselves into two parts here and take a thought on these two halves. So one half are going to take the position that a strong government regulation is needed to help control the development and use of biotech. The other half, you're going to take the position that the field of biotech should remain free of regulation. If we regulate, we'll only stifle new development. So we don't want to have to slow anything down. I'm going to give you just a few minutes in class to work on it. If you're at home, I'd like you to choose one to do, one side of the debate, and then you're going to respond on Classroom. So pause the video, take some time, think about it. Which way should it go? To wrap up, we're taking a look at, again, the ethics and impacts of biotech. So I would like you to finish off with a short paragraph here. In your opinion, what's the single most important ethical issue related to biotech, and why does this issue need to be resolved? So again, if we're doing this in class, I'm going to have you guys do this independently. If you're doing it online, watching the recording, I'm going to have you turn that in on Classroom as well on your own. So as we look at the impacts of biotech, the reason, the idea behind it always comes back is just because we can doesn't always mean we should. Just because we can doesn't always mean we should. And I want you to kind of expound on that idea a little bit more. So that is it for lesson 16.4. You've got your standard couple of review questions. The assignment was posted on Classroom. Take your time, answer those review questions well. If you have any additional questions for me, please ask, and I will see you in class.